So, Molly, thank you guys for your amazing hospitality. And I'll tell you, I don't go many places. As an entrepreneur, I think you're always have to be a little full of yourself because that's what you're willing to put yourself out there. I was pretty humble coming out here and meeting Molly and listening to everything that they have accomplished, the two of them together and their families. They had the restaurant. She brought me around and showed me all these products of growing the different plants and making all of these different herbal. She's got makeup over here. She's got the meat that she's processed. She's got the raw milk. And I said, who makes all this for you? She said, well, I do. When it's slow here in the restaurant, I'll just sit there and make all the makeup and things like that. I'm just blown away. I don't know if you've seen Kiss the Ground and Uncommon Ground, both on Netflix. And they are the most amazing. Have you won awards for that? You had to have won a lot of awards.
Yeah, it won Tribeca Film Festival. 10 million people saw Kiss the Ground. And it's become the Wikipedia attributes the term regenerative agriculture to becoming brought into the zeitgeist through that film. So it came out in 2020 on Netflix. Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, and then the third film coming out in June of this year called Groundswell, which is the third in the trilogy, the Soil Trilogy.
Well, thank you guys for all that you have done for our country and for agriculture. I love your hearts. If you've not watched those videos, go watch them. They're amazing. Thank you for your support for the campaign. And I've come to realize that politics is a team sport. We won a lot more with me on the trail, which is a lot of fun. I'll tell you, we never really thought we'd be in politics. Candidly, Patty and I met in Dallas and got married. Patty told me that we needed a hobby together. She was thinking like scuba diving or maybe hang gliding. Probably not hang gliding, definitely scuba diving. Back then they had some TV commercials. They had this one internet commercial that was promoting what the internet was for. And had this lady with a bee suit on, covered up with bees. I thought, I've always liked honey. So I went over to Dallas and I pulled this little honey company. So I called them and I asked this guy on the phone if I could buy a beehive from him. He said, well, sure. And I was like, great. I hang up and I realized we live in an apartment. So I called my parents, called my mom and said, Mom, can I put a beehive in your backyard? They lived in Plano. She was like, sure. And so Patty came home from, she was a school teacher. She came home from work and I said, all right, I've got a hobby, beekeeping. So again, it's not exactly what she had anticipated, but I'll tell you what, I just absolutely fell in love with it. I bought the beehive from, it started this little honey company in 1972 called North Dallas Honey Company. You had 100 beehives and 50 of them were just down the road from where we lived. So on the weekends, I had started the ad agency after I got out of college, and so I'd go over on the weekends and help Fred work the bees. It is amazing. A queen stores all the semen in her abdomen for her lifetime, and she can regulate whether she fertilizes an egg or doesn't fertilize an egg. If she does fertilize an egg, it turns into a female, and when she doesn't, it turns into a male. She'll just start laying drones in the spring in case they have to hatch a new hive. The drones don't do anything other than just wait around in case they have to copulate with a new queen if they hatch out. So it's great to be a drone in the summertime because you're sitting around eating honey, waiting to have sex. In the fall, the females take the guys out front, they sting them to death and kill them. So it goes back to just being a female slumber party all winter long. So just crazy little fact about beekeeping that kind of helped draw me into it. Fred was also, he was in about 10 health food stores and he was 75, 78 years old, had cancer, didn't know it, had a hard time getting around. I started getting up 4 o'clock in the morning before I go to work and I go put honey on the shelf for him. A few months went by and Patty and I started going down to his house at night. We'd go in the garage after she'd get off of teaching school. We'd bottle honey by hand in this guy's garage. We'd fill the bottle and put the label on and have to go deliver the next morning. We did that for quite some time, maybe 6 months or so. I remember we were doing that one night. She said, what are we doing? Like, I have no idea. We're just helping this guy. So I wound up buying that little honey company in 1997. He said, hey, you want to buy the honey company? I was thinking, why would I want to do that? And I said, how much do you want? He said, $10,000. I said, I don't know. He said, I'll finance it. So I bought it in the summer of 1997. I didn't buy the bee side. I bought the product side. I hired a beekeeper to bottle honey. I hired a distributor to put it on the shelf because earlier that year, in January of 1997, I went on a mission trip down to Venezuela that resulted in me going and working full-time for this Christian ministry, traveling to 88 countries around the world, telling people about Jesus from 1997 to 2010. And that's really what's the focus of our lives. We raised support. We were missionaries. We raised support. I always had this little honey company on the side. But being in ministry, it was awesome. The way my parents raised us. My mom, she was Miss Sherman. My dad was a lieutenant at Air Force Academy in Sherman, Texas. She was in the Miss Sherman pageant. And he was escorting her, and they got married 3 months later. So we were raised in the military. So my dad and mom always raised us to serve. I went in the Navy myself, left the day after I got out of high school to be able to pay for college. When I went into ministry, I thought, this is amazing, because I get to use my professional skill set that I feel like the Lord had given me. I got to make an impact for God's kingdom. We created this little tool called an Evangelist Cube, and we created this other platform called Iron Second, and to just be able to tell people about the story of Jesus, how he makes an impact in people's lives. In 2010, we left ministry and started doing the honey company full time. Honestly, God just blessed it. And we were tiny at the time. And again, I would buy honey from commercial beekeepers, and we'd bottle it. I had my cell phone number on the back of every bottle of honey I sold. Because when I first did it, you always had the next Department of Health, you had to have your phone number on there if you didn't bottle it yourself. So from 1997 to 2014, I had my personal cell phone, and I talked to every single person that ever called. Like literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Now I realize that was a 17-year consumer research project. And you would think there would be thousands of questions that people would have over that time. Honestly, there was like 5 or 6 that people always ask. Where's the honey from? Who made it? Do you test it? Are there things that you add to it? I realized when I started doing the honey company full time, what people really wanted. So we started testing all the honey that we bought twice. I would buy it, I'd test it before I bought it, and I'd buy it and I'd test it again. When we tested it for herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, corn syrup, rice syrup, antibiotics. Because I came to realize early on that even in agriculture, the bees would get things in their food that never intended to be in their food. If it's in the bees' food, then it's in our food. I was very concerned to make sure that we had that best, highest quality honey that we could make. I also felt like high fructose corn syrup was killing Americans. I would take products that had been made with corn syrup, we'd re-engineer it, and we'd make it with honey, and we'd bring it to the market. The amazing part is, within 3 years of when we started doing it full time, we became the #1 brand in America. We rebranded to Nature Nates. So if you're ever in the grocery store and you see an orange honey label, that's at Nature Nates. We became the #1 brand within a few years, and God just totally blessed it. We were in the honey business. I speak for 2 hours about the lessons learned in the honey business. Because I'll tell you what, it's an incredible blessing and a huge challenge to take a commodity and to create a brand and completely relaunch the honey industry. Because if you think about the honey industry, it's been around the beginning of time. People have been selling honey. Since I had my cell phone number on the back of every bottle of honey, I knew why people ate honey. When I created the Nature Nates brand, I created this big focus, 100% pure, raw, unfiltered. The reason why I did that is because everybody helps with your allergies. And it does, but not as much as everybody thinks. At that point, the honey industry was about $300 million at retail. In 2011, $300 million. We launched the raw, unfiltered brand in 2011, and again, within 3 years, we're the #1 brand in America. The more interesting thing is, here 12 years later, that same honey industry category is now $1.5 billion in America. Household penetration went from 32% to today it's about 68%. So, which is relevant in what we're going to go do in our next journey. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But so I was the CEO, so I wound up selling Nature Nates in the end of 2021. It just got too big. I couldn't continue to fund it myself. So I found a great private equity group that bought Nature Nates as a CEO until November 2024, where they said, hey, we want to put more distance between you, Nate Sheets, and the brand Nature Nates, and just be on the board. Because at this phase, I was like, man, that's kind of a bummer. I just started praying and asking the Lord, and what's next for me? I spent 12 years in full-time Christian ministry, spent 6 years in the military, serving in the Navy, and spent 14 years I want to make an impact with my life. I feel like God created us as workmanship in Christ Jesus for good works that he created for us in advance to walk in. I was up in Washington, D.C. I was having lunch with a buddy of mine, Rick Santorum, who is a politician, I was telling Rick I wanted to figure out what this next phase of life. He just looked at me and said, you've been in agriculture for all these years. You completely transformed the honey industry by testing. You've been dealing with these chemicals. You've been helping farmers be able to be more successful. He goes, why don't you go run for ag commissioner in Texas? I came back and I was talking with Patty, and she said, well, what does the ag commissioner do? And I said, I'm not really sure. I've been one of his larger donors over the years. I still didn't really know what he did. I went and pulled up his job description. I was actually quite shocked at the impact that you could have as the commissioner of the Texas Department of Agriculture, because you're overfeeding 5.5 million kids in the school lunch program in the state of Texas. You're overseeing the use of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in agriculture inside the state of Texas. You're over rural economic development. You're over rural healthcare. You're over rural broadband. You're the chief marketing officer to be able to help farmers and ranchers be able to market their products to consumers through this program that the Department of Agriculture has called the Go Texan program. I was a member back in the 90s of the Go Texan program, and candidly, it was never beneficial to me as an entrepreneur. You were also over consumer protection. As I thought about that, and Patty and I were talking about that, she just looked at me and she said, a lot of those things that you would do in there are things that you've been really trying to accomplish inside the honey company for years. Because I really thought about it, when we were in ministry, we would go raise money for projects. We were limited by the impact that we could make according to the money we could raise. When I was in the business world, I wanted to make an impact in people's lives. I was always relegated by the amount of money I could make. I thought, in this position, the real value of this is the bully pulpit. The ability to go out and tackle big problems, the issues that we're all dealing with as Americans, and to be able to bring people from opposite sides of the table, bring them together, and to cast a vision for a better tomorrow for agriculture. Because as I really got into it, I realized what has gone on in America. I was reading a Brownstone dinner, came out of COVID, and they wanted to have these events and gather people together to make sure that we never allow the government to force things like that upon us again. And it's easy in hindsight, looking back and seeing what happened in COVID, and we're all ready for it. If they try to perpetrate that on us again, we would not fall for it. But I'll tell you what, in agriculture today, it's not as black and white, and it's a little bit more like the frog in the pot when they just start to turn up the heat. And the frog doesn't realize that he's being boiled to death. Because we lost 68 farms in Texas this week. We lost 68 farms last week and the week before. All the way back to 2018, we've lost 68,000 farms right here in the state of Texas. Now the natural question is, well, why are we losing farms? You can't afford to be in agriculture anymore. I was down in Beaumont, I was meeting with a rice farmer, 5th generation rice farmer. He had been given the land, all the equipment by his dad, as his dad had given it to him, and his dad had given it to him. He was sharing this with me, and almost in tears, that he was given the last generation of that family to farm that rice farm. Because his kids have watched their dad struggle, realized that they didn't want to have any part of it. And he said, I just sold my rice crop for 40% less than it actually cost me to make it. If you think about it, here's a 5th generation farmer that his land was free and clear, his equipment was free and clear, and now he's got debt on that land, and he's adding debt to that land every year because he continues to lose money. He would jump at the opportunity if a data center developer came up to him and said, hey, I'll give you $10,000 per acre for your land. He would think that is a gift from God. And the rest of us in Texas, we sit there and say, why do we have all these data centers encroaching upon us, and why can't we stop them? Well, to us, it's an encroachment. To some of these people in agriculture, it's their salvation. Because what's happened in agriculture, and the reason why we lost 68 farms this week, is because they're upside down. Their revenue, in 1980, a farmer made 40 cents of every $1 of food. 40 cents, that was their part. That was their revenue. Today, 45 years later, farmers make 15 cents as their revenue. And yet in all their input costs, their fertilizer, their diesel, their equipment have gone up 300%. That's why we continue to lose farms at record pace. The other part that we have going on in America, this is what I love about Sovereignty Ranch and Molly and Ryland and their focus, is the impact in agriculture. We're all about generating food that we all eat. Over the past 50 years in America, we have been pursuing cheap calories, ultra-processed foods, cheap calories. And the impact of cheap calories is 70% of all Americans have one chronic disease or more. 78% of kids 18 to 25 cannot serve the military because of their health related to the food that they eat. We spend $4 trillion a year treating symptoms of diseases related to the food we eat. So if we think about the way we have pursued cheap calories in America, those calories are not that cheap, because we're paying for it in healthcare costs. Even more importantly, we're paying for it in quality of life. So as I thought about throwing my hat in the ring and wanting to pursue this position, and thinking about that bully pulpit and really working on these two issues, I tried to articulate it clearly and easily for people to understand. I said, we want to grow food better and grow better food. Because I felt like those two things represented both the agriculture producer side, to help them be able to grow food better, and to grow better food that represents us as consumers. We jumped out there against all odds, thinking that we could actually be successful, but we had a strategy. We wanted to focus on the 40 counties between Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And I'll tell you, I don't know if I've ever worked so hard in my life. Not ever having been in politics, I felt like I had a lot of ground to kind of cover from the very beginning. I bet you I worked 80, 90 hours a week for 10 months. And the best part about it, honestly, was meeting all of you guys out there on the campaign trail. You know, people like Molly and Ryland and Lee over there with Gun Owners of America who came alongside, Free Blocker, Wendy. There are so many people that we met along the way that just made it worth it and made it fun. The most humbling part was to see how hard people worked. I realized that early on, they're not doing this because of me. They're doing this because they realize the direction that we're heading in Texas and in America has got to change. I'll tell you, it was really amazing when we started to see the organizations that came alongside us, because people always said, you have the most interesting campaign because you have people on opposite sides of the aisle that normally are at odds with each other, all getting behind what you're doing. I said, well, of course it's because we all eat food. It's all about the food. Who doesn't love a farmer and a rancher? And we're losing them like never before. We had the Maha group, and we had the agriculture groups. Those two groups normally don't get along. We had the grassroots groups. We also had the governor and his cadre on our team. That's what it was really going to be able to take to get out there and do it and to overcome. I'll tell you, the governor did endorse, and he invited us to come and travel with him for 10 days. We went to 3 cities every day for the last 10 days as a get out the vote, which is honestly pretty surreal. Because I'm thinking, like, who in the heck am I? I'm just some guy, you know, a beekeeper guy that got some honey and now I'm running for this and I'm hanging out with the governor. The enthusiasm that even he had for agriculture. And the reason why he wanted to get behind it, the current ag commissioner, our old ag commissioner, his 12 years at the Department of Agriculture never had one meeting with the governor. Not one time. He had the legislature against him. Matter of fact, the Sunset Commission goes in and reviews all the agencies in the state of Texas every 10 years. They do an analysis to determine whether they re-up the charter of the agency to keep it going into the future. The direction that the Sunset Commission was taking with the TDA 5 years ago, they were going to take away the Ag Commission, put it under the governor's office, and leave the commissioner without an agency and just give him a salary, because of the divisiveness that had been created inside the Texas Department of Agriculture against legislators, the senators, and even agriculture. I think The thing that I'm most excited about is just to see the enthusiasm and the belief that we have to change the direction that we're headed in America. I'll tell you, Patty and I had the opportunity, and we were invited to come up to the White House and went up for that ag celebration that they had. I'll tell you, to sit on the South Lawn with 300 ranchers and farmers, they had a red, white, and blue tractor up there. They had a John Deere, and then they had this gold-plated tractor that was right up front that Donald Trump was enamored with. He was like, thank you for that gift. To have our president stand up there and talking about agriculture, realizing and communicating that maybe the most important job that we have in America today are the people that are sitting there in front of him. Because he really does see agriculture as a national security issue. You know, in Texas in 1970, we had 700 meat processing plants all over the state of Texas. 700. Today we have 4 meat processing companies that control 85% of the meat in America. 2 of them are owned by Brazilian companies. In 1970, a rancher would make 70 cents of every $1 of food, and the packers would make 30 cents. Today, the packers make 70 cents and the ranchers make 30 cents. We've become more reliant upon our adversaries to be involved with how we feed ourselves in America than ever before. We are concerned that we have China, we're trying to bring fentanyl into America, yet we get 60% of our raw materials from them for pharmaceuticals, and they are one of the big 3 agriculture companies that have total access to our grocery store shelves. We used to have a textile mill in Lubbock, Texas, where 40% of the world's cotton is made. Now we have 2 textile mills in America on the East Coast. So what has happened in agriculture today is that farmers and ranchers have lost optionality. They're price takers, they're not price makers. There used to be hundreds of buyers in America of their product. Now there's 2 or 3. There used to be hundreds of seed suppliers. Now there's 2 or 3. There used to be hundreds of equipment companies. Now there's 2 or 3. And they've lost the ability to be able to be price makers. They're only price takers, and that's why that guy sold his crop for 40% less than it actually cost him to make it. So how do we change it? I sold a bottle of honey into the retail space. It would go in at, say, $2. By the time it got to the shelf to the consumer, it was $7. So there's $5 in between the producer and the consumer. The whole reason why the Go Texan program was created originally was to be able to help producers to be able to access consumers and sell directly to them. Unfortunately, no one's ever really figured out how to use that and make it work in Texas. I don't come to this job with a deep-seated agriculture experience. We do cutting horses, we've got a range, we do cow-calf, we've got a lot of experience with some bees. I've got 30 years of food manufacturing, sales, distribution, marketing, quality assurance, and everything associated with helping to drive revenue. I'm in 30,000 grocery stores with Nature Nates. And so the problem that we have with agriculture today is we need to be able to sell more product to more people for more money, more closely. If we take that $5 and we start to push that $5 towards a producer, which increases their net income, which then also gives us the ability to lower food prices for consumers. Because that $5 is all about distribution, brokers, distributors, wholesalers. The whole purpose of that Go Texan program was to be able to help you sell your beef to you, the consumer that wants to buy it. That's one of the things we're going to do. We're going to get in there. We're going to cut regulations. We're going to lower fees. We're going to make it easier for producers to be actually in business in Texas. We're going to help farmers and ranchers be able to sell products to consumers more locally. I think there should be a farmer's market at every single elementary school in Texas. Mom, go down, drop your kids off on Wednesday morning and go down and buy your produce for the week. We've got to create that relationship. And I'll tell you, the fix as it relates to helping agriculture be more motivated to clean up and make healthier, more nutritious food goes all the way back to my consumer research project when I had my cell phone number on the back of every bottle of honey I sold. Because those 5 or 6 questions that people were asking back then are the same 5 or 6 questions that people are asking today. What's in my food? Do you test it? Do you add anything to it? Where is it from? Who made it? Because we've lost transparency in how we feed ourselves. The McCool Act in America, the mandatory country of origin labeling for meats. Well, we don't have them anymore because the World Trade Organization said that it put international producers at a disadvantage with American producers, and we should get rid of it. Congress eliminated it in 2015. I don't understand. So we're going to work on trying to drive transparency. We're going to work on trying to drive that consumer relationship, because as you, the consumer, meet your producers, if you came down here and you're buying stuff from Molly, you're going to ask her, Molly, what's in this? Did you add anything to it? Did you test it? How did you make it? Did you use chemicals? She would realize if she used GMO Roundup Ready seeds that people really didn't want to buy that. And given an option, that she's being transparent, she's going to realize if I can create healthier, more nutritious, healthy food, I can sell it for more money. So it really does become a free market fix when we connect those consumers and the producers together. November to go, his name's Clayton Tucker. We call him Clayton. A Democratic organizer. He's 35, he's never signed a paycheck, he's never had an employee, and he lives with his mom. So I think it's going to be fun to get to debate with him a little bit. Clayton's mom bought him a beehive so he could finally do something with his life. After he got stung, he realized it was far too dangerous. The reason why he hates this is because he was a successful beekeeper. So I can't wait to debate him. It's going to be a lot of fun. Listen, we need your help. We need your support. I need your prayers. I need your wisdom. Molly said, hey, I'd love to come alongside and help. We're actually going to be putting together work groups to work on these big issues. Water is an issue all across Texas. School lunch programs, how we deregulate. We're going to start working like we're going to win, campaign like we're going to lose. I appreciate y'all's support, and Molly and Ron, thank you for having us out here. Thank you for having Patty me out here. You're an amazing host. I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Do you have any thoughts on what might be killing half bees when they start in Southern California and pollinate the fruit trees and the nut trees all the way up the coast? By the end of the year, how many bees are dead and why are they dying?
Yeah, we've lost 65% of the bees in America in the past 12 months. We've had this happen not to this level, colony collapse disorder. They started trying to figure out, was it cell phones, was it pesticides? I think we've got 120,000 beehives and we'll bottle 100 million pounds of honey, so I got a little experience in this. This neonicotinoid pesticide, which is a nicotine-based pesticide that they use in agriculture. They'll coat that seed with the neonicotinoid. When that corn sprouts up, every part of that corn stalk is covered with that pesticide. So the bees will fly in to that pollen, they'll get the pollen, they ingest it, their immune system, and then ultimately makes them susceptible to diseases, and then the mites come in and whack them out. So as it relates to the pollination in California, that is the worst thing you could do for your bees. Now, beekeepers do it because it's almost half of their annual revenue. You'll make $200 for a hive to go into an almond pollination, and you might make $100 of honey on a hive in a year. So that's a big thing. You go put your bees in there, and they spray fungicides on them. They don't care if the bees are there or not. It takes 4 bees to go to 1 flower to pollinate to get an almond. It's necessary to do it. At Nature and Eggs partnered with Texas AgriLife to create a mite-resistant queen bee, not through GMO, through natural selection. They do know the traits that they're going for, and we're working on trying to fix that. In the commercial bee business, you can split your hives every year, so it's not like we've just gone over the edge of the cliff. So you can split